What's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be talking about the 2016 All-Star Game in terms of who I believe should be there. In the background is just some more Gauntlet gameplay. I don't know, it's very outdated, but whatever, it's something to watch while I talk. Anyways, so with this season is kind of in full swing now, we're about 15 to 20 games in. I think it's about time that we should talk about who should and should not be an All-Star this season. For a quick background, for an all-star, some people believe it should be solely based on your team success, and some people think it's based on player success. You hear this a lot like on ESPN or whatnot, but in my personal opinion, I think it should be a mix of the both. For instance, if a guy's having a great season and his team's not doing too well, as for instance Anthony Davis this year, he still deserves an all-star thing. Of course, one guy can't carry a team solely by himself to the playoffs or a decent record. However, if there's a very, very, very good team, they do deserve at least one All-Star. I feel so. And that you saw last year in the Hawks where they got four. I didn't know about having four All-Stars, but they definitely deserved at least one as they had a pretty amazing season. Anyways, let's get started. In the East, I'm going to name the five stars, which is just the first five guys that came to my head with the two guards and the three backcourt or front court, whatever. Yeah, front court. And for me, it is Isaiah Thomas, Jimmy Butler, LeBron, Paul George, and Whiteside. As of right now, Whiteside's one of the best centers in the league, and LeBron and Paul George are two of the best forwards, and Isaiah Thomas, besides Kyle Lowry, is probably the best point guard in the East, and Jimmy Butler is undoubtedly the best shooting guard in the East, at least I believe as of right now. Now, for the bench, I have Carmelo Anthony, Kyle Lowry, Kevin Love, Andre Drummond, Paul Millsap, Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, and John Wall. To go through why I chose all of these, I mean, the first five seem pretty obvious. Isaiah Thomas is the only one who some people may not agree with, but I put him there because the Celtics are having a pretty decent season. He's putting up great numbers. He's really fun to watch, and he is an all-star type of player. Melo for the fact that he has put up great numbers, and, well, not great, but very, very solid numbers. And this is kind of like a legacy pick. They do this every year where they just choose a guy who's been an all-star for a bunch of years, so they usually just do that for them anyways. Next is Kyle Lowry. As of right now, Lowry, I believe, is leading the league in steals while averaging probably like 20 points and 6 assists, and he is leading Toronto to a playoff berth. I believe they are 5th in the East right now. I predict them to not fall top 3 or top 4, and that prediction is about right, as they're floating around the 3 to 8 range based on if they win or lose any game, but he still deserves an all-star bid as he is a very good player. Next is Kevin Love. I chose Kevin Love because he's actually doing very well this year. I believe he's averaging about 19 and 12, and the Cavs are doing very well as well, so that they deserve at least 2 All-Stars, and Kevin Love is finally playing like an All-Star once again after having a down season last year. Next is Andre Drummond, who started the season incredibly hot, averaging 20 and 20 through the first 6 games or so. Even though he's not averaging that much anymore, he's averaging 17 and 17. Those are crazy numbers, and his team is barely missing the playoffs, and I believe that's enough for him to get an all-star nod. Next is Paul Millsap. He is the best player in the Hawks as of right now, in my opinion, and I think he deserves it not only because the Hawks are doing well, but he's having a great season on his own. Next is Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh. I'll lump them together. Both of them are kind of legacy picks. They've been all-stars for many, many years. I believe Wade's was in his second season and Bosh was in his third. I'm not positive off the top of my head, but they've been all-stars forever in the East, so I feel like they'll be lumped in there, especially considering the Heat are doing pretty well. This will give the Heat 3 all-stars, which is kind of weird, even though they're not the top seed, but they do deserve a couple all-stars. Finally is John Wall. Even though the Wizards are kind of struggling this year, and they're not playing too well, I believe John Wall deserves to be in there because he is having a pretty solid season, and he is a very good point guard in the East. Now, a couple guys who are just off the list might not make it because there's only 13 spots. I have Giannis Antetokounmpo. The Bucks aren't doing too well. I'm kind of disappointed in the Bucks. I predicted them to be a lot better, I believe. But he's still having a solid season. I believe he's averaging 17 and 7 and putting up some other good stats all around. He's improving, so I believe he could possibly be an all-star. And then I also said maybe possibly another Atlanta player could be the next all-star out or the next one missing it, because Atlanta is doing well as well, and they are a team-based organization where it's not a single player, but more of a team, so they might throw in a couple all-stars, kind of like last year. So that's my view on the East and why they should each be an all-star. Now let's move on to the West. The West I want to kind of go more in depth, as the West does, I don't know if they're deeper, but they do have a lot more guys it feels like that could be an all-star. First, let's start with the backcourt, and it's Curry and Westbrook. This is pretty obvious, as both of them should be leading the MVP race as of right now. If not, they're both top 5 players. At least they're playing that way, as Curry has led his team to an undefeated season so far. Even though Westbrook hasn't led his team to that much of success, he's put up ridiculous numbers. I believe he had a couple triple-doubles so far, at least one that I remember of, and he just puts up crazy numbers each night, and he actually helps out his team compared to last year where he put up crazy numbers and didn't do too much for his team. At the 2 forward spots, I have Durant and Griffin. Kevin Durant is back, and he's averaging pretty solid numbers. They're not at his peak of 2 years ago when he won an MVP, but they're very, very, very good numbers that deserve a starting nod. And Blake Griffin is putting up, big numbers as well. I believe he's averaging like 25 and 9, even though the Clippers are slipping as of right now. I just don't feel like he should be punished solely for that. Of course, I don't like Chris Paul. I don't know if I mentioned that before, but I'm not a huge fan of his. So I'll put the blame more on him than on Blake Griffin, because Blake is playing very well this year as well. And starting at center, I would put DeMarcus Cousins. Even though they don't make you starter center, Boogie is probably the best center in the game as of right now, in my opinion. I like him the most. He's a very solid player. He has expanded his stroke to the three-point line, where he's making threes pretty consistently now, which is pretty impressive. And he's still averaging like 28 and 11 or 28 and 12, which are some great numbers that deserve an all-star nod. Even though the Kings aren't doing too well, they really do deserve an all-star, and that should be DeMarcus Cousins because of his play so far. Now let's move on to the bench. First up, I have to mention Draymond Green. With the Warriors having a historic season where they started off hotter than any team ever, they deserve at least 2 All-Stars. This is an instance where I feel comfortable saying that team success should lead to multiple All-Stars, because no one has ever done this, and I believe that there are guys who do deserve a spot. While Klay Thompson isn't as performing as well as he's used to, especially last year, I think that's why Draymond Green should be on the All-Star team. He's put up crazy numbers, and he might be the biggest reason why the Warriors are so good. Of course, Curry is probably the best player on that team, or well, he is undoubtedly. But the thing is, with Draymond Green's versatility and all-around game, they're able to expand their game so much further. So that's why I think he deserves to be an all-star. While putting up crazy numbers, he's got back-to-back triple-doubles, and he's just having a great season so far. Next is Eric Bledsoe and Brandon Knight. I combined these two. They each deserve to be on the team. I do like both these players, but they're both having a pretty good season. I believe Phoenix is in the 8th spot right now. While usually 8th spot doesn't mean, oh, you should get multiple All-Stars, both these guys are put up over 20 points a game, and they're both having great seasons. Both averaging, I believe, around like 4 rebounds and 6 assists each, give or take. And of course, Bledsoe is the better defender, while Brandon Knight is the better shooter. And I feel like this is deserved for Brandon Knight, as last year he definitely should have been an All-Star. In the last spot, I forgot who they gave it to him in the East over, but he really does deserve it, and Bledsoe does deserve to be an All-Star as well after this great season he's having so far. Next, I had put Dirk. Dirk, once again, is one of these legacy picks where he's been an all-star, not every year, but very consistently for past, 11 or 12 years. I don't remember off the top of my head. But he's also leading the Mavs to a playoff spot in a very successful season. Before the season, I didn't even know if they're going to make the playoffs. And I believe they're 3rd or 4th in the West right now, which is very nice. I don't know if they deserve multiple all-stars, as many guys aren't performing super well. But he is definitely the best player on that team, and he's helping that team to a successful season. Next is James Harden, and even though the Rockets are doing absolutely terrible this year, it's sad to see, especially considering I thought they'd do a lot better. He is putting up almost, I believe, over 30 points a game, and these are some crazy numbers he's still stacking up. Even though he's not as good as he always was, he is still an all-star level player. Next, I have Anthony Davis, and he kind of goes along with this whole thing, not a great season, but still pretty amazing, where he is having a down season where the first game I actually watched the whole game versus the Warriors, and that was terrible to watch. As I know over the offseason they're like, oh, he's a three-point shooter now, which is, with a center, you almost never want to hear, because that just means that they're going to get lazy and just throw up a bunch of threes or mid-range shots, which he did. But he came back from that, and he's starting to play more like his old self, an improved old version of himself, averaging about around the same as last year, about like that 24 and 10, and throwing like 2 blocks, which are all-star caliber numbers, and a very good individual season. I mean, his team is injured pretty deep, so that might be a reason why they're not doing too well. Next is Kawhi Leonard, and Kawhi Leonard is probably the best player in the Spurs right now, and the Spurs, I believe, are the 2nd seed in the West, and Kawhi is having a monster season, averaging like 22 and 8, over 2 steals a game, and I believe a block and a half. while shooting very efficiently from the floor and the three-point line. All these contribute to why he should be an all-star. It's really impressive to see, especially considering when he came out, no one really expected much of him as he was drafted by the Pacers and traded away for George Hill, and to see what he evolved into today is quite amazing. Finally, the last spot is Damian Lillard. And, of course, I'm a Portland fan, so I have to throw him in there, but also he is having a good season, averaging 25 and 7, and the Trailblazers aren't doing as best as they can possibly be, but they're floating around 500. They're a little bit under. I believe they're 7 and 10 or 8 and 10 right now, which isn't too bad, but it can be improved upon. But I do still think that deserves an all-star nod. Now, the guys who I believe who just missed are Andrew Wiggins, as his team is doing pretty well. I believe they're in the playoffs as of right now. And he's putting up some solid numbers, averaging like 20 a game, or he seems to always be putting up 20. And I said any guy from the Spurs or the Jazz should be the other guy out, because both of these teams are in the playoffs, and they do have a lot of solid guys, but I don't know exactly who to put in. You also might want to throw in a Grizzly player, as the Grizzlies are in the playoffs as well, but I really don't know who to put in. Mike Conley, I don't feel like he should be in there, as there's so many guards. He's not playing up to his standards, and Gasol's not playing too well. No one else on the team is super good, and I'm not putting Mario Chalmers in the All-Star game. Sorry about that. Anyways, guys, that was my two East and West teams. Of course, these are not for certain. There might be guys who might break out soon, guys who might fall off, injuries, all that kind of stuff happens every year. And I'm not going to predict that this is going to be the teams exactly, because of course when people get injured, more people come in, and that's how you saw that's who it was. Kyle Korver last year. He was one who was the last replacement over Brandon Knight. Because, I believe there was 2 or 3 injuries in the East and West, each of them. So that's why you got a bunch of guys in the All-Star game. But anyways, guys, those are the 13 guys from the East and the 13 guys from the West who I believe deserve to be All-Stars this season. I do like talking about this because even though the All-Star game is essentially pointless, I do like rewarding players for their good job throughout the season and for their team success as well. So whatever it may be, comment down below what you think about my selections, and say who should be an all-star in your opinion as well. Give me a thumbs up if you watch this far, and please subscribe for more 2K content. A lot of you guys have been subscribing lately, and it's absolutely amazing to see, because I get the emails when people subscribe, and it's cool when I wake up or I just check my phone and I just see people are subscribing. It really makes me motivated to do more videos. I know I haven't been uploading a lot recently, but that's because I have a lot of work going on right now. Anyways, please share this with your friends as well if you want to. Anyways, guys, I'd like to thank you all for watching today, and of course, have a good day.